You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we're going to be talking about England's stunning, impressive victory over Sri Lanka. The universe Jos turning up for the first time in international cricket. You know, Max, it's only the second century by an England batter at a T20 World Cup. It was all good. And then the wheels came off, didn't they? Because Mills got hurt. And then, the wheels got put back on again by that great catch.
Mills came off.
It was good. It was really fun cricket match. I can't wait to talk about it with you, Max. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. That was really enjoyable, and obviously as an England fan, but also nice to see a team win batting first, wasn't it? That was a nice change of pace.
Well, look, it goes to show what we've been saying the whole tournament. Good team will do the business, whether they're batting first or second. And England were good, were really good today. They were so good that they basically won with three bowlers. We'll talk about that, but before we do, Max, what are the messages that you'd like to impart to our audience?
Well, please do like and subscribe to this video and our YouTube channel, especially since we've got a few subscribers to make up after what happened on Sunday evening. And follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the Cricket Pod. We're sponsored by Woodstock Cricket, so if you want any new gear, head over there, woodstockcricket.co.uk, and get 25% off with code TCP25. And over to Jack to do the Patreon message.
And what I'm going to do is actually
recording
record
in
this
progress,
so that we have documented evidence for the people who are listening on the podcast. This is going to be very confusing for everyone on YouTube, but I'm going to pretend to restart the show now so that I don't have to edit it weirdly later on. Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast. We're going to be talking about England v Sri Lanka. Because of a technology mess up, we're not going to have a long intro, are we, Max? We're just going to get straight into it with you summarising what happened.
Quite right, yes. So we were back to the pudding of Sharjah, the treacle tart that has been rolled out for most of the IPL. And here it was once again shining brightly under the lights like a film of unwanted scum on top of a cup of tea. But here we were, and England lost the toss and were tested batting first for the first time in this tournament, and were tasked with attempting to win the game batting first, which no team other than Afghanistan had yet done. And to start things off, England looked like they might make a mockery of the difficulty of batting first, and England got off to a pretty quick start in the first over, but Winindu Hasaranga had other ideas, snaffling Jason Roy, and ultimately not going for many runs at all and being very, very good, because he is also very, very good. Theeksana didn't really go for any runs, didn't take any wickets rather, but also didn't go for any runs. So he also put the wheels in England. And by the halfway stage, England had only managed 47 runs off 10 overs, and things were looking pretty grim. But there are a combination of factors which changed things rather dramatically. And this is very weird because I feel like I'm speaking to no one right now because Jack's just disappeared. But we'll carry on. Sri Lanka decided that everything that was good about the first 10 overs, they would not repeat for the remaining 10 overs, and decided to no longer bowl length deliveries and bowl too full or too short. And this allowed Jos Buttler to be absolutely fucking brilliant and smash everything all over the place. And he moved from about a run a ball 35, I think it was, to 101 off 67. So, 70 off 30 for the last half of the innings. That's a pretty stunning turnaround. And Eoin Morgan, who'd been going at about the rate of Alendal Simmons, managed to pick things up as well towards the end. And England piled on 163 for 4 from 20 overs, which looked at halfway like being far too many. And it looked like far too many pretty early on in the Sri Lanka innings, as they were very quickly reduced to 57 for 4 and then 76 for 5 at the halfway stage. And it looked like it was going to be a fairly simple procession. But Sri Lanka's star man, Hasaranga, and captain Dasun Shanaka had other ideas and briefly looked like putting on a bit of a show and an upset towards the end. And as Tymor Mills went off, clutching his quad, there were dreams of another famous Sri Lankan World Cup victory, but 2 bits of unbelievable fielding from the England players made up for the lack of bowlers, as Jason Roy's relay catch with Sam Billings and Jos Buttler's quick thinking and hurling the ball at the stumps to remove both of the set batsmen ultimately meant that England would canter home quickly, with Moeen Ali mopping things up nicely at the death. And it was a comfortable win on paper in the end, but pretty tight as things actually happened, Jack.
Sri Lanka were well in this match until the 16th, 17th over. Was it the 17th over? Maybe even the 18th over when they finally got Hasaranga with that awesome relay catch. Sri Lanka are probably out of this tournament now, but they're a little bit unlucky, I think, to be out at this stage, because they played some pretty good cricket. I think you'd say today. I think they were good against South Africa as well, and so it's a bit of a shame that we're losing what is quite an entertaining side. We'll talk about them in a little bit, I think, more detail as we move through the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But I think first up, we probably should talk about the headline story here, Jos Buttler, because he was, you talked about the sort of the dual methods used in this innings.
Yeah.
The first half of his innings, in fact, the first 2/3 in terms of balls faced, 45 deliveries, were not super pretty. He struggled quite a lot, I think, against Tikshana and against Hasaranga, the spinner. He didn't have too much fluency. And then the last 21 balls, I think the first 45 balls, they produced 50 runs. The second 21 balls produced the next 50 runs. And that's about as well as you'll ever see anyone bat ever.
Yeah.
He dismantled Sri Lanka. You were saying that they're sort of missing lengths and lines and so on. And partly, that's partly true, but I think it was sort of the ferocity and the raw power and the ability that he has to hit sixes to about
pretty much anywhere.
300 of the 360 degrees.
Yeah. And he's working on the other 60.
Yeah, exactly. It was just awesome. I don't think. Yeah, I mean, I don't recall anyone batting as well as that. I'm not even sure that his performance against Australia was a better innings than the innings.
Well, and the performance against Australia was on what was obviously a better cricket wicket, despite the total that Australia put on. It was clearly easier to play shots on than the one today, which was very low at the start. And there is an argument that the dew came sort of towards the end of England's innings, which did help Jos Buttler loosen the shackles a bit. So that was probably another factor. But to be able to switch at that point, after batting for so long and struggling, and then suddenly just change gear to put together what was the match-defining innings it takes a special talent, and we were treated to that today. That was an absolutely stunning performance from Jos Buttler.
Yeah, if you want sort of a further illustration of how good this was from Buttler, Jeff Lemon tweeted out, he'd looked back at the last 3 matches, or the last match that Australia, India and England have all played, and after 10 overs, Australia were 41 for 4, India were 48 for 3, and England were 47 for 3. And they finished on Australia 125, India 110, and England 163. And that was basically just because Jos Buttler was awesome.
Yeah, that's Jos Buttler's last 25 balls, isn't it? Basically, it was unbelievable.
Did you have a favourite 6 or a favourite shot?
Well, I mean, it wasn't the best shot, but it had to be the one that got the 100, surely, for the last ball of the innings. It was a dreadful delivery, like a leg stump full toss, and I was always going for 6, but it was a deserved 6, I think.
I thought the scoop was good. That was probably my favourite. I like a scoop. Was that in that over as well, or maybe the Chimera over before? Yeah. Which, you've got to be so good at cricket to pull that off.
He did attempt one that was slightly too quick to be. This is the reverse step away, reverse paddle attempt that was at 93 miles an hour. I just don't want to play in that shot to that delivery. But it was stunning. But I mean, there was a sort of a little graphic that they put up when Buttler was on around 70 or 80, which did highlight how things had slightly gone wrong for Sri Lanka, and it was just basically the pitch map of the lengths that they bowled, and you could see there was the full length, there was length, and then there was anything short of that. Basically, all the red balls, which were boundaries, were not in the bit that said length. There was just a very obvious gap there where the ball had where any balls there had not gone for boundaries, and it was just sort of highlighted really how they kind of lost their way. And I don't know why they started going for Yorkers. It was a bit of a strange one.
Yeah, I mean it's a bit odd. I think we're probably seeing the realistic limit to, or the realistic talent ceiling for some of these Sri Lankan bowlers. I think there's part of that happening as well. They were really, really fierce, weren't they, in the group games against the associate nations in Ireland, and too fast for them. But it's 90 miles an hour is not necessarily too fast for Jos Buttler.
No,
especially if you are spraying it. And I don't think I have a feeling that this is more the spraying is more to do with them not being quite as good as maybe they looked.
Well, the same thing happened to them against Australia as well. I was watching the Australia game, and Finch and Warner, two guys who are hopelessly out of form, were able to put together decent scores, but precisely for that reason, that the bowling was off. But I mean, arguably there's a pressure element to it as well, because Jos Buttler, as well as being helped slightly along his way to smashing the ball around, did also change his intent very markedly after the 10th over, and that arguably said that if you're not as high quality a bowler as some other players, you're more likely to stray from your lines and lengths under that pressure than maybe someone who's been around the block a bit.
For sure. I mean, it's like, look, we're talking about talent ceilings a little bit here, but being battered by Jos Buttler is nothing to be ashamed of. That happens. That happens.
Happened to Mitchell Stark the other day.
It happened to Mitchell Stark the other day. It happens to at least 3 teams every IPL. It's happened to, I reckon, every single major international side at some point in a white ball match at this point in time. He's very good. He's in the best 11 in world cricket at the moment. And this is just sort of another example of why. At the other end, there's a couple of other things from this innings I think we should talk about. Eoin Morgan, 40 from 36. Is he back, Max? This is one of the themes of the podcast in the last few weeks is declaring that somebody is back. We had Warner, he was back, and then he went away again. Is Eoin Morgan back, and is he going to stay around? Or is this just what happens when you play Sri Lanka? If you're hopelessly out of form, a la David Warner or Morgan, they'll give you some runs to make you look good, so that you keep your place for the next couple of matches. But actually, you aren't good.
Yeah, I fear he is not yet back. But I'll take it. I'll take that innings today. In particular the massive pull shot for 6 that he played, because supposedly he's weak against the short ball. Well, he is a bit weaker against the short ball. He prefers it full, but that was nice. That was a nice shot, and that was right out the middle. And maybe that is the kind of thing that will give him a bit of confidence. But if England are going to win the World Cup, I don't think they necessarily want Morgan.
England are going to win the World Cup.
I don't think they necessarily want Morgan batting that often.
This actually was pointed out to us about the halfway stage on Twitter. I should have got the tweet up. That's always useful when you reference a tweet to have it up. Who was it who sent us this message? It was a good one. It was about resource allocation of this England side, and it was from Jonathan Evans. And he said, percentage wise, Morgan faced 30% of the deliveries in this innings. Moeen 1.67. And Livingston 0, which is probably, I think, kind of what we'd agree on here. Maybe not ideal. Maybe you'd want the other two to have faced the lion's share. But it wasn't necessarily a bad innings, It wasn't a great innings either.
It ended up not being a bad innings, but it threatened for a long time to be an absolutely dreadful one. It
did. It looked like it was going to be a Lendl Simmons.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't, or at least a Virat Kohli. And it probably does turn out to be a bit of a Virat Kohli, doesn't it? But So Morgan, we're not sure. Maybe he's back. He's more back than he was. Half back, let's say. And the other thing that I think we probably should talk about are the Sri Lankan spin bowlers who were really, really good. I think possibly. So England did okay in the power play, didn't they? And then they lost some wickets, or at the beginning of the power play. Then they lost some wickets, and then they took their foot off the gas for a while. I wonder whether that. So there's two reasons that this could be. Were they unable to play the spinners, or were they just waiting for the pace bowlers?
I think possibly both happened. I saw no evidence that anyone could pick the Karen ball from Thikshana, and I think that's evidence in the fact that he went for 13 runs off 4 overs. And Hasaranga, I think possibly they decided to play out because he'd looked dangerous. The Googly had already done for Bairstow and Roy. They didn't pick that either. So I think there's an element of not being able to pick the change-up deliveries. But again, they kind of knew, didn't they, where they could make up for lost time, and that was evident in how they attacked Lahiru Kumara because he took a bit of tap.
Yeah, he certainly did. He took real punishment. He wasn't as angry in this game. Maybe he needed to get more angry to be good. Hasaranga though, 21 runs, his 4 overs cost for 3 wickets, and Thikshana 4 overs, 13 no wickets. How good are those two? Was this conditions, or are they really good?
I've not seen a lot of Thikshana, so I couldn't say about that. I think conditions probably helped him because it's the kind of pitch with the way it was behaving, where a lot of deliveries are attacking the stumps that normally might not be, just because of the low bounce. So that sort of adds extra jeopardy to the way you play the ball. But I mean, Hasaranga is undoubtedly brilliant. I think he's an absolutely phenomenal player with the ball and with the bat. He's really, really exciting talent, and I can't wait to see more of him.
Yeah, he was awesome. We'll talk about the batting in a sec. The final general point, I suppose, that we should touch upon is that England, by winning batting first, have they now set the template for what other teams should do, and will other teams follow the trajectory? Now, obviously,
I'm not sure the template of 47 for 3 after 10 and then posting 163 is the way to go. Maybe the template of having Jos Buttler.
But I think that obviously having Jos Buttler helps. Obviously having one of the best players in the world helps. But we have seen a few teams be in those positions and not go maybe as early as England went, because England did start. They recognised they were in a bad spot, and by I think it was the 13th over they were back up to a runner ball. So they just started scoring at 10.
I think the 100 came up after 14.3 overs, which is it's like just under sevens, which is a massive turnaround from 4.7 and over.
And we haven't really seen another team batting first here do that. We've seen Afghanistan go from ball 1 and it come off against Scotland. But even then, when they've done it, they've sort of slowed down afterwards and picked it up at the end. I think that's the way you got to go. I think you have to attack the power play as much as you can, and then maybe look to like double that score in the next 8, 9, even 10 overs, and just that middle period. I think you kind of just have to try and keep it going, and then go at the end. But obviously, if you haven't got that early start, you do have to put your foot on the gas earlier than you would otherwise. And I think England showed that nicely today. But what I would say is that that was only really possible because of some sheer brilliance that a lot of teams don't have at their disposal. And despite England winning this game today, it did show that chasing was a massive advantage at this ground in particular. We saw a lot more dew as well than we did in the previous games. I mean, everyone had a towel, and they even had to change the towels halfway through because the towels got so wet, mopping up the cricket ball. And the fact that England had to play out of their skin in the field and with the bat to beat a team that is significantly worse than them, who played quite well, but are significantly worse than England, does
does show what a leveler it could be in that situation.
Sure. I mean, I don't know. I think England were mainly in control of that, and I think we'll talk about the second innings in a bit more detail. But I do think the Mills injury significantly shifts.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
The dynamic in the last few overs away from Sri Lanka have got virtually no chance of winning this. To there's going to be 3 overs of quite bad bowling or relatively bad bowling coming up for them to potentially feast on. Final word on Buttler. He's just so good, isn't he? I mean, genuinely in the world right now, who do you have above him?
Nah, no one.
No one, yeah. And I think there's a serious chance that he's going to take England to the World Cup final, take England to the win. I just don't. I don't see a team that's got a bowling plan that's going to work against him. And I think when he gets on one of these little runs, he's virtually unstoppable. What's he got picked up over the last 2 matches? He'll have scored 172 runs off about 100 balls. Or
right,
108 balls.
Yeah, take that.
He's absolutely marvellous. Long may it continue. Long may it continue. And good luck trying to get him out. All right, looking at the Sri Lanka innings, because they didn't give up, did they? They lost early. Where do we start? I want to start with the run out, because this was the dumbest run out I think I've ever seen. Batting first, like England did, does put pressure on teams. There's absolutely no doubt about that, and that manifests itself in decision making, like the Nasanka run out. So if we break this innings down, I think maybe the way to do this is to break this innings down into the iffy start, the reasonable recovery, and then the bit that England did at the end. So starting with the iffy start, Adil Rashid running riot in the power play, Morgan pulling off a great run out. Sri Lanka, were they just rattled, or what was going on here?
I can't really put any logic to the run out. There's nothing nothing really you can say there. That was just idiotic, just tapping the ball to the man closest to the bat. What are you thinking? Stupid. That's colossally stupid. Adil Rashid bowled really well. Again, the googly was devastating today. I think people were struggling to play that, and his again was good. I mean, Asalanka looked decent for a little while. He looks like he's a fairly fireworks kind of player.
I like Asalanka. Yeah. He's he is one of the players that can rattle an opposition team. We saw him do it to Australia. We saw him, pump Maxwell, and then Finch decided to just sort of feed Marcus Stoinis to the wolves over the rest of the innings, just because of the fear that he'd put into the other team. And I thought it looked like he was going to do it again today, obviously until he skied a catch. But it looked like he's the kind of player that can change the game with their presence. And good innings again, to be honest. 21 from 16. That's passable in the circumstances.
Yeah, I think it injected momentum back into the innings, isn't it? That's the thing. Like, you come in at number 3 and you've lost a couple of quick wickets, you can very easily go into that, I need to rebuild slowly mode. But he didn't. He attacked, and I think that was the right way to go about it. And some people will probably say after hitting a 6 and a 4 that he then went for one too many when he holed out to Adil Rashid. But actually, it was there to go for, and he played the right shot. He just didn't execute it properly. So, yeah, can't argue with that.
That's cricket, baby. We also got another look at Avishka Fernando. That's 29 T20s he's played in now, 28 innings, 325 runs, average of 12.5, with a strike rate of 93.93. Max, will his quest to be the slowest ever player to 500 T20 test 500 T20 test runs, 500 international T20 runs, come off, or are Sri Lanka going to have to finally look at someone else for this number 3 or 4 position?
Oh, there's enough of a conveyor belt that even when he gets ditched, he'll be back again. He'll get there.
Cool. I keep doing this. I keep flicking off the scorecard.
Rajapaksa was next.
Yes,
he batted well. He what do you make of him? I think much in the same vein as Asalanka for me. I think he looks like a great player, and again, really, really exciting and powerful.
So if I was going to go through the Sri Lankan order, this might be a good time to do it because they're basically out, and say who I think is worth keeping around. I think Nasanka's shown enough that there's something there. He can maybe be like an anchor type figure. I don't think he's awesome, but I don't. I think he's passed the audition for future inclusion in this team. Kuso Pereira, I don't really understand what he's there for. He obviously can't wicket keep. Dropped another one today, another breadbasket one. After I think he's dropped catches in all 3 matches, or in the last 3 matches, and you can't be a wicketkeeper. And I don't mean like they're not like diving catches; they're like 2 hands
regulations.
Yeah, coming right into
and
your
not
chest.
standing up to the stumps either. With standing back,
I don't get him. I think they should end the Dick Weller ban and bring back an actual wicketkeeper. Sri Lanka passes. Avishka Fernando fails. Rajapaksa absolutely passes. I think he's arguably been probably their second best batter, I'd say, of this World Cup, and he was decent again today. I mean, like, he gets out, doesn't he, hitting the ball down to Roy, who takes quite a good catch, diving forward after he'd hit Wokes for 6-4. And arguably there were people who were saying, you've done the damage in that over, rotate the strike or something. You can make an argument for that, but. Similarly, it wasn't a very good ball from Wokes.
No,
he's trying to hit for 6, so it's probably just a little bit unlucky. I mean, who knows why that happened? Maybe it stuck in the pitch for a second longer. Maybe a bit of dust got in his eye at the wrong time. So he'd make it. Next, Dasun Shanaka. I don't really understand why he's in the team. What does he
captain,
do?
mate. Specialist captain.
Specialist captain. He's in the Dhoni role or the Morgan role. And then Hasaranga, who's awesome, and definitely should be in the team. So they've got about half of a batting lineup, is what I'm saying, Max. And I think that's probably why they didn't win today, because they've only got half the number of players that you normally need.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But I think it's at least there's. I think for last time we were talking about the Sri Lanka team when they came over to England and got pounded. We were all doom and gloom about how terrible they are and how they need to sort things out. And I think we can be slightly more optimistic about them now going into the future. Looks like they've got some actual talent to build a team around.
Yeah, absolutely. They're miles better than I thought they were.
Yeah.
I thought they might struggle to get out the group stage. I thought Ireland would beat them, for example, and they brushed them aside. They've got two or 3 really good bowlers, and
they should have beaten South Africa.
They have some decent T20 batters that understand that you have to bat with tempo to win games. Now, they're held back massively by a few ball eaters and a few guys who just clearly aren't good enough. But as Sri Lanka does, if they rotate through another 30 or 40 players, they might eventually find the right combo. Yeah. Let's talk about this finale, because Buttler was great. Everyone else seemed to struggle, and then right at the end, Hasaranga goes mad and really puts England under pressure. The margin of victory, the 26-run margin of victory, doesn't fully tell the story, because it felt a lot closer than that. Where does the end begin? Is probably the first question to ask. Is it when Mills goes off injured?
Yeah. That's the point. That's the start, the climax of the story. I think the denouement, if you will, because that's the first twist in the tale, wasn't it? The twist that makes you wonder that actually are Sri Lanka now genuinely in with a good shout of this, because England have lost a death bowler there, haven't they? And you've got Chris Wokes, who'd been expensive so far, so you're not. Are you backing him to do it? Chris Jordan had bowled well today. In fairness, so you've got a few banker over there, but it meant that they had players to target, and Adil Rashid had to come and it was Chris Wokes, wasn't it? Had to finish the over that Tama Mills couldn't bowl, but that meant that Livingston and Ali then had to bowl extra overs, and it was basically going to be all about the Livingston overs, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was a really odd decision from Morgan to bowl Wokes, because by bowling Wokes, it meant you couldn't bowl him for 2 overs.
Yeah.
So you effectively lost three balls from one of your 2 remaining actual bowlers.
Yeah.
And would have to make those balls up with a part-timer.
I think he must have decided that that the slow bowling was the way to go at the end.
Well, I don't know if I would have made that call. It was quite a brave decision.
It was a brave call,
and
and an extremely brave call. Was it the 18th? I suppose no. Both at this point, both Hasaranga and Shanaka had perished by this point to skip forward slightly, but to have well, no, it was just Hasaranga hadn't it be out, but bringing on Moeen Ali at the end with the short straight boundary, just going for having those three blokes at deep mid off, deep mid on, and behind the bowler, and be like, right, beat them. That was bold. That was seriously bold.
Yeah, it was, but it paid off. It didn't. It
did.
Paid off in fine style. That Roy catch. That was something special, even as the standards of those go, because both players, they have to run at least 25 metres each to sort of meet up.
Converge.
Roy has to catch, and while all his momentum is going down, propel the ball back up for Billings. On a scale of 1 to 10 with those types of boundary catches, 1 being very easy, you catch it, you lob it up yourself, and then you take one step out and catch it yourself. And 10 being I can't even think of one. 10 being that Jordan one against India last year, which was just insane.
I mean, it's a good 8 or 8 or 9, I reckon. Yeah, it's well up there. Because the fact that he's diving towards the boundary rope, and has to, while he's midair, flick it up to Sam Billings, and he couldn't have put it in any better spot for Sam Billings to catch it, could he? He didn't have to move. It was right where he wanted it. It was stunning. Great work. And I particularly enjoyed Jason Roy's celebration afterwards, where he did what I'm going to call the constipated man, as he crouched down and roared and went very red.
Yes, they were quite red in general, England, weren't they, with the red trousers?
Yeah.
It accentuated the redness of the face too. After that, Sri Lanka sort of fell in a bit of a heap. It was game over when Hasaranga was out. They bowled out in exactly 19 overs, 137. England win by 26. They're top of the group. They're pretty much certain to go through. Yeah.
Shanaka fell for the old 1-2, didn't he? The ball in the nads, followed by the run out where he wasn't thinking properly.
That hurt. I'm just looking at the table. I mean, in theory, South Africa and Australia could catch England, but England's net run rate plus 3.1 makes that
pretty good, isn't it?
That high. I mean, South Africa could dish out the mother of all hidings to England, and potentially win the group. But probably England have won this, which means they'll be playing Afghanistan or New Zealand or Namibia in the next round. Definitely not India, and I think they're probably better than all of those. So I think there's a pretty good point, or a pretty good chance at this point in time, that you will be seeing England in the final. I mean, obviously crazy stuff does happen. T20 is quite volatile, as we saw to some extent today, actually. One of those teams could beat England, but I would be surprised. I think you'd make England favourite there. And that pretty much sums it up. We had a few questions in. Do you want to answer them?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So Dan says, is not one of our Dans? We've got a new Dan on tomorrow, or we've got another Daniel joining the podcast.
New old Dan.
New old Dan, yeah. Not Norcross and not Western, Gallen, to talk about South Africa. A different Dan says, is the key to batting first not necessarily batting with intent, but simply to have Jos Buttler in your lineup?
Hey, you can make a strong argument for that case, can't you? But what does Jos Buttler have? He's got bags of intent, so
he absolutely does have bags of intent. Cricket Badger, not that Cricket Badger, another Cricket Badger, says, assuming they win today, should England bat first against South Africa to get more practice with the conditions against them?
It's an interesting thought, isn't it? Where is the game against South Africa? Do we?
Let me have a look while you continue speculating.
Yeah, I mean it's not a bad idea, because the other thing about today's game, Sharjah. Well, yeah. The other thing about today's game is that with England having batted second twice against teams that they've skittled, we haven't seen anyone really get a chance to bat apart from Roy and Buttler for the most part. So I think, as much as anything, it might be an argument for doing it in the expectation that perhaps you're more likely to get some
time in the middle.
Get some time in the middle, and you can move the order around a bit, shove Moeen Ali up, get Liam Livingstone to bat a bit more. I think that might be a reasonable argument, but I don't think Morgan would do it. I think Morgan would be more interested in winning the game and keeping momentum going for the semi-final.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. If I were him, I would. If I won the toss, I would definitely bat second. It's a no-brainer. Even if it'd be a real like real statement of confidence, wouldn't it? Yeah. We'll take on anyone. Lose the toss, don't care. Win the toss, don't care. Rye Jones, and this is quite an important question, asks, if Mills can't play any further part, do you think we could finally see the return of Tom Curran?
Yep.
So they're not. If Mills is injured, we don't know. All we've heard is he's hurt his quad. He didn't go off on a stretcher.
He didn't go off. Yeah, he didn't hobble off, but he looked like he was struggling. I doubt he'll play if assuming South Africa aren't going to catch us. Yeah, he's not going to play. Mark Wood, I think they only expected to be out for 2 games, so he might be back by then. So we might get Mark Wood. We'll see. But if not, then I wouldn't be surprised if Tom Curran comes in. But if they want to, there's the left arm option to think of. So if they do want to retain that, we do have other options. So
could give Willie or Topley a go.
Willie or Topley could get a go. But
I can't see them going with Curran.
They like him, don't they? They like Tom.
They can't. Yeah, they've been burnt too many times. Surely they won't do that.
He's a in inverted commas death bowler. Which is what we've lost.
Well, is he? He's the death of
chances
he's not,
bowler. But he, supposedly he's badged as one.
Okay, and then I think we will finish off with this question from Kishore, who asks, do India have a player like Jos Buttler?
Does anyone have a player like Jos Buttler? I don't know. I think India have got enough players who can do what Jos Buttler does on a given day. I think I don't know if there's anyone who's like as consistently brilliant, but KL Rahul can do that if he wants. I think Ishan Kishan can from time to time, but I don't think either of them are quite on the same level.
If I was going to pick 2 players from the India lineup, then they are the two obvious calls. I think Ishan Kishan tries to do what Buttler does. He's just not quite as good, which is not a huge slight on Ishan.
But he's
Kishan.
only 23, so give him 3 years.
Yeah, it's that Jos Buttler is the best at doing what Jos Buttler's doing. I think the obvious one, and probably the other player in the world who I think should be doing what Buttler's doing on a regular basis is KL Rahul. It's so obvious that he has that in his locker, or has this in his locker. He could be better than Buttler. You sometimes think. He's got all the shots. He's got all the shots. There's not a specific bowler type that he's weak against. Bats in the same position. Like it's
keeps wicket.
Yeah,
basically
Rahul,
the same guy.
KL Rahul, I genuinely think if he wanted to, could strike at 150, 155 and average 30, 35, which would make him an awesome player. He'd be one of the best in the world. He'd be right up there with Buttler, doing what Buttler's doing, if not better. But he chooses not to, so he isn't. That's the reality, isn't it? Or maybe we just think that maybe he's conned us all, and we just think he can do this, and he can't. But KL Rahul has played Buttler-esque innings. That innings he played in the last game of the IPL, where he went absolutely mad. That was Jos Buttler. He was channeled as Jos Buttler. For whatever reason, he doesn't want to accept the slightly higher volatility that comes with playing that way. But that's the obvious answer.
He loves the colour orange.
Yeah. And I think we should probably wrap up the podcast there for today. I think we're back tomorrow. Yeah, we got Daniel Gallant on tomorrow. We've had a couple of bumper shows, so go back and listen to those over the weekend. The big India roast yesterday was quite fun with Daniel Norcross. And Saturday was decent against Australia as well, although that's kind of old news at this point. A reminder, we're on Twitter and Instagram at The Cricket Pod. You should like and subscribe. If you're watching now, click like really quickly, and that will tell YouTube that this is good content, and YouTube will tell other people to watch, and then we will all be happy and rich. And that's the point of running a cricket podcast, is to make yourself rich. And on the topic of riches,
Sure.
patreon.com/ the cricket pod. Head over there and sign up if you want to give to us directly. We have 3 tiers. The first tier, you get to ask us questions and we'll always answer them. We answer a lot of those on this podcast. You also get access to our ball-by-ball database of every match, every game, every ball that's ever been played, bowled, delivered, hit in the IPL. All the outcomes, etc., venues, batter-handedness, bowler type. Middle tier, you get hat, and top tier will actually hang out with you at some point in the future, which we're looking forward to. We've got 2 people in that tier, and we're looking forward to hanging out with them, probably after the World Cup. So head over there, patreon.com/the cricket pod, all in the show notes. We will be back tomorrow. Bye bye, Max.
Bye.